Welcome to Reaper's Creepers. Step into the shadows, where tales of the unknown unfold. Relax, listen, and drift into the dark. Wow, I certainly was not expecting this to blow up as big as it has. All that I can really say is that I'm glad you guys enjoyed my last post enough to want more. It feels really good, finally being able to share this stuff with others. I'd like to get the subject of pictures out of the way first, as I've had quite a few comments asking about them. The pictures contain numerous personal details and a few defining features that might allow you to deduce my clients and my own location. Not only this, but sharing them would almost be like breaking an unspoken bond of confidentiality between me and my clients. It just wouldn't feel right morally. But enough of that. I'll try to get right into it. I don't believe in the occult. I don't believe in the paranormal or anything of that sort. The case I'm about to describe did not change this. You really have to put a lot of trust in your senses, what you've personally seen or heard as a PI, and bogging those very senses down with deductions spotlighting supernatural intervention is a pretty piss-poor decision if you want to get anywhere. You see, I do, however, have my weird personal superstitions and idiosyncrasies. Wouldn't really be human if I didn't. I try and keep them separate from my job, but sometimes they pop up in the back of my mind regardless, picking and drilling at the gray matter in my skull in a desperate attempt to burrow their way back inside. For example, I sometimes feel that reality stops functioning correctly in complete isolation. That, when things are left completely unobserved for a long amount of time, the unknown, unseen spaces cease to exist. Stuff that shouldn't be able to physically happen is suddenly no more than child's play and unwelcome things that have no right existing play their fickle little games with us. I don't try to think about it too much, and I most certainly don't try to give the stupid little thought any power. Nonetheless, there's always the occasional case in which the idea is particularly tempting to indulge. It's the middle of summer and the cicadas are chirping in their monotonous choir, like a million audio tapes put on never-ending, ear-rending repeat. The summers are fairly cold up here, but at least there's no snow. I'm sitting in my office, finishing up one of my previous cases. Just general reports left, lots of paperwork, boring stuff that seems to cause the world to drown in a cacophony of summer insects. The tedium is broken when my phone begins to ring. I pick it up, only to hear the voice of one of my PI friends on the other end. We chat casually for a few minutes, mostly just me trying to get my mind off of the writing pains in my wrist, but it's obvious that he's called for a reason. He explains that he's been on a missing person case, a small boy, around the age of 4. His mother and father had divorced a few years ago, and his mother is currently holed up here in my area. The boy has apparently been missing for quite a while now. The police had been contacted first, but they turned up nothing. After a week passes with no sign of a missing person, you kind of have to start assuming the worst. Nevertheless, we're usually the last resort for these cases. So my buddy goes asking around, and apparently he manages to dig up a couple of accounts saying that the kid was seen boarding an olive green SUV with a woman looking to be in her early 30s, just hours before his disappearance was reported. Nobody thought to note the license plate. His dad, my friend tells me, had left his son home alone for a half hour or so to run out for groceries. Why he didn't take his son along with him, I don't know. At first I thought it might be deliberate, like he had for some reason done it on purpose. Of course, the human brain works weird sometimes, and dumb little human errors are always possibilities. I can only imagine the grief that must be felt after realizing one of those tiny bursts of idiocy may have caused something so heart-wrenching. Long story short, he matches the description of the woman. Short, mid-30s, long brown hair, overall rather average looking, to a fair amount of other women. One sticks out, though: the boy's mother. The child's father had been granted sole custody of the kid. Apparently, the kid's mom had a little cabin out here, which she would regularly visit and spend days' worth of time in without alerting her husband. And whenever she was back home, she'd either be asleep or out somewhere. So my buddy says he wants to team up for this one. Split the pay. He's in a slightly larger town and the closest one to mine, but that's still a good 5-hour drive. Since he still has a few leads over on his end, he wants me to check out the mother, see if anything comes of that. It appears to me at this point that the case is pretty cut and dry, so I accept. He emails me the address and a picture of the kid and his mother, and I finish up my paperwork before setting off. I drive around, semi-lost for a few minutes before I finally catch sight of the gravel road that breaks through the wall of bark created by the forest's border. I glance down at my phone and sigh, placing it into my pocket. Guess it was stupid to expect this to be on Google Maps. Now I always despise having to go into the forest. As I begin to slowly pull down the path, towering green giants blotting out the sun overhead, I'm starting to regret taking this case. The gravel slowly turns to dirt, and the small break in the tree line slowly begins to disappear at my back. It's dim in here. Dense pines doing a damn good job of casting an impenetrable veil of shade over the woods. Now, don't get me wrong. The Canadian boreal forests, and this one is no exception, are absolutely stunningly beautiful. Birds chirp their cheerful tunes. Small rock faces jut out from the land like Mother Nature's own sculptures, and streams of sparkling clear water babble across the rocks into cute little waterfalls, and occasionally picturesque lakes and rivers. But that's exactly why I hate these forests more than any other. More than anything, it always, without fail, seems like some horrible, sprightly facade. Like the entire forest is attempting to scrape this movie set together in order to offset the constant gnawing that I feel at the back of my neck and in the very core of my stomach whenever I come in here. The silhouette of a small building finally begins to come into view off on the horizon. So with a small sigh, I park my car and get out. As much as I'd love to stay cooped up in that metal haven of protection, I am here on a private investigation job. I do have to remain relatively covert. That's not happening if a car just suddenly pulls up onto the front lawn of your isolated cabin. As I get a little closer, I begin to notice that something is off about the trees. I can't place exactly what it is. They just seem strange somehow. The path eventually opens up into a small clearing, a makeshift wooden gate sitting at the end of the path. It's not stopping anybody, as there are no walls on either side of it. Its only purpose seems to be presenting a tattered "No Trespassing" sign. Past the gate is the cabin. It looks to be in surprisingly good shape, and from the outside appears rather modern. In front of it is a small patch of grass, which acts as a parking space, and a few areas in which it's been worn down by tires, the tracks leading right to the gate, and the path I've just come down. Slowly but surely, my eyes drift up from the patch of grass to the car that's been parked in it, my heart suddenly beginning to dance around in a mixture of joy and dread. Not surprisingly, it's an olive green SUV. I pull my camera up to my face and peer through the viewfinder. The SUV, the license plate. I snap a picture of each. Slowly but surely, the frame drifts over to the cabin. I snap a picture, and it's at this exact moment that I realize the front door has been wide open this entire time. I go quiet on instinct, the surrounding area suddenly feeling like it's been hit with a blast of cold air. Then I hear it, a faint humming coming from inside. Soft, like a woman's voice. Once I hear it, I suddenly become unable to stop hearing it. It's a haunting, drifting tune, equal parts melodic and eerie. Every once in a while, it stops or skips a little bit, as if its source is running out of breath or having voice cracks. Before I really even know it, I'm taking a step forward. I know it's a stupid idea, but my legs are moving faster than my mind. Just a little peek, I tell myself. Just one peek to satiate my curiosity, that's it. The cabin looms over me as I get closer. The grass crunches under my feet until finally, just barely, the inside of the building begins to come into view. I stop dead in my tracks. Branches. It takes a moment to register, but there are tree branches covering the floor. When I say covering, I mean covering. These are not sticks. They are long, spindly, thin tree branches, deliberately cut off of their trunks. Like a natural line, my gaze follows them to the single piece of furniture in the room. A small, white coffee table and a CD player perched on top, and I realize why the humming sounded like it was skipping. The trees around me suddenly feel like they're closing in on every side, like the earth below my feet is trying to swallow me whole. I don't take another moment to sit and deliberate on it. I just book it out of there as fast as I can goddamn will myself. I launch towards my car, slam the door shut, put it into reverse, and punch it out of there. That place simply felt wrong. The first thing I did was contact the police. I sure as hell was not going back there, but there was no way I just gonna let it sit there like that. They investigated and were just as weirded out as I was, but ultimately didn't turn up anything of use. The house was deserted, save for the sea of branches, the white coffee table, and the lone CD player. The SUV, too, was near pristine, not unlike a new car. Investigations continued for a while, but it was more or less a dead end. Nobody ever returned to the cabin. My buddy's leads never panned out either, and the child's mother suddenly went missing as well. We never found any of them. In the end, things unfortunately had to be called off. I most definitely have a few theories and ideas on what exactly went down with that godforsaken place, but none of them can be proven, and I'd rather not make this any longer than it needs to be, so I'll let you guys speculate for now. Edit. Since a lot of you requested it, here's the prevailing theory I have. It's totally unfounded and has a number of holes, but what can you do? If I'm to try to inject some semblance of sense into this, I'd say that the mom most likely did kidnap the kid. We ran the plate on the SUV, and it was registered to her. The police searched everywhere, too. They turned over the branches, looked in the car, the works. Nothing. No fingerprints, residue of any kind, nothing. The best I can assume is that the woman took the kid up here, probably gathered up anything important, food, water, precious jewels, etc., and set up this whole scene just to confuse anybody who tried to find her, to throw us off her trail. She then took her kid and either managed to somehow sneak a ride out of town or just straight up went into the woods. If it's the latter, they're both probably dead. There's still a whole bunch in there that's assumed and has no supporting evidence, but it's the most logical thing I can think of. From Reaper's creepers, the unknown retreats and the shadows release you for now. Join us again to drift deeper into the dark.